Okay, cool. A small exclusive group, I love it. And maybe I don't even need this sound thing, right? A warm welcome to all of you. And just to set the scene right, well, actually, I think I'll just move around a little bit now when we're not more people. No one in the whole world is really mastering sustainability communication. It's even the ones who thinks who looks like they are on top of everything. They are not. Technologies are changing, the world is changing, and we constantly have to think about how we communicate sustainability. So for this session today, we will explore why is it even relevant to talk about sustainability with travelers, and how can we engage the travelers hands-on. We're going to experience a little bit about that, and then we're going to learn from best practices from other communicators. Yeah? Cool. But just for me first, this is the agenda. This is what you can expect. I will give you a little bit of a talk first, about 13 minutes or so, with a little bit of inspiration. Then we will have a short, it's difficult when, then we'll have a short breather, maybe talk a little bit about what I presented. And then we will dive into the workshop, and I will explain the outline of the workshop when we get to it. After that, we will do a bit of do's and don'ts and tips and tricks on communication and share some best practices. And then it's a wrap. Then you master the sustainability communication, or maybe not. We'll see, right? But first, a few words about myself, because we don't know each other. I don't think actually there's any familiar faces for me in the room, which is amazing. I'm Josephine. I'm the CEO and founder of a startup called TripDoodler. Before I took a leap of faith and became an entrepreneur, I've spent the last 25 years in tourism and travel in global commercial roles with companies like Carlton Wagon Lee, etc. And I'm also certified in sustainable tourism from GSTC. And then I'm a board member and a keynote speaker or whatever. And I have not created TripDoodler on my own. I actually have a co-founder, which I just want to introduce you to very briefly, because he's been a very center part of creating this workshop. He's an environmental engineer, so he speaks a language that none of us understands. So my role in the company is to translate whatever it is that he's saying. He has 20 years of experience in ESG across 30 countries, also in tourism. And he's very knowledgeable in how we measure and implement sustainability actions. So the two of us come from very different backgrounds, but have teamed up to work on translating sustainability to tourists. So why on earth did we do that? Well, 80% of the travelers still tells us that they can't find the more sustainable options when they are choosing where to stay or where to eat at the destinations, right? That got us thinking, because we, as global travelers, we do 10 billion trips every year. So why not try and leverage all these travelers in mapping sustainability actions across the destinations and help us communicate them? You can think a little bit of TripDoodler as a Trustpilot or okay, I'll not touch anything, as a Trustpilot or TripAdvisor for sustainability. But we have a unique way of presenting sustainability information and making it quicker and easier for travelers to understand. But enough about TripDoodler and us. If we have a look at how we communicate sustainability today, it actually makes sense that travelers is a little bit challenged. Not because we don't communicate. I would actually dare to say that we over-communicate, and I think we also just heard that in the keynote speak, which I'm very humbled to follow, but that we over-communicate sustainability. And we have about 150 sustainability certifications in the world. They guide us and they lead us in building more sustainable solutions, right? But we all communicate our sustainability actions in strategies, ESG reportings, And they don't translate very well to customers or to travelers. Hand in heart, when was the last time you chose a place to eat based on their financial ESG reporting? Kind of never, right? I mean, even in this crowd, I don't think we go to that depth of information when we choose where to eat or where to stay. And the platforms, and I'm just thinking this actually is very far away, so it's probably easier, but we'll do that for the workshop, that we move towards this one, so you can read everything as well. Because the platforms that we distribute all our amazing content through, and where the travelers make their decisions, well, they are all inventing their own new marks to guide the travelers. But what they do is adding to the complexity. While these information is super important for us in building more sustainable solutions, for the travelers, it's one black box. The tourists, they don't know what's behind a certification. The ESG reportings are way too long for them to understand. They're too complex. They don't translate what we do very well to the average tourist. Because their level of knowledge with the tourists and the understanding of the complexity and sustainability is very low. And we tend to forget that when we talk among us, because we are in it every day, but the average person really don't know. So we need to add translation on top of the sustainability documentation that we have. We need more transparency and less black box. But transparency doesn't mean that we share every detail. Transparency means that we need to provide the context for the decisions that we make. Because you can see it a little bit like balancing the integrity that we need in sustainability with the ease of use that the travelers need in order to make the decisions. So the transparency sits on top of the documentation, and it serves the purpose of translating the complexity into a language that travelers can understand and feel empowered by. So how can we do this? Well, we believe that we have to go personal. We all have personal interests, and some of us are very focused on reducing our carbon footprint, lowering the plastic waste, food waste management. Other, again, is more focused maybe on the social part of sustainability in tourism, supporting indigenous communities or local heritage sites. And then again, some are interested in on where they spend their dollars so they can support the economic of the destination that they are visiting. The bottom line is that the tourists look for sustainability based on their personal interests, and they look for information to support this. So not so long ago, I was presented with some data from Visit Denmark, and now it's going to be really interesting because it's very small print. But it was a data on what the Germans look for when they choose a destination. And I brought it with me because it's a very interesting how detailed level the travelers are actually looking for. I don't expect you to read this, but it says things like able to sort trash, food waste, that there are vegan and vegetarian options available. It's very, very tangible sustainability actions. That is the level the travelers are looking for. So I know that these data are really just, based on Germans choosing their destinations, and actually even not all Germans, but the ones that are in the green idealist segment. But this is the direction we are heading for all the travelers. So how do we communicate this in our communication, right? How do we add that? Well, there's also one answer to that. We keep it simple. And keeping it simple, so as I mentioned before, the level of knowledge for the average traveler is really low. So by making sure that we take out the complexity of sustainability and keep it simple, we have the opportunity to engage more travelers. Because in order for us to drive the behavior change that we want with travelers, 3 things need to be present. They need to be motivated, they need to be prompt, and they need to have the ability. So when we make it easy, We give them the ability right away, and then we can, over time, develop the ability and the motivation and the knowledge.
Sorry, can you please just give this previous slide? I want to make a picture. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my hopeless translation from German to via Danish to English, so I hope that it's correct, right? But the source is there as well. Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. So it's like, if we don't let the perfect stand in the way of the good, we actually have an opportunity to balance the integrity in sustainability with the ease of use that the travelers need. So back to the 10 billion trips and the travelers who takes all these trips, because we also know that travelers trust travelers. So whoever you trust in your everyday life is also the people you trust to make your consumer or traveler choices. We also know that reviews is the second most trusted source when choosing a brand, travel or anything else. So the challenge is that the way that travelers today share sustainability among them is very often based on subjectivity. So it's what someone believed. And this means that I need to know what you know in order for me to trust when you write hashtag this is a sustainable travel or hashtag this is a sustainable destination. But what if we gave the travelers a tool where they have the opportunity to share objective and concrete information on sustainability information and make this information searchable? Because we agree, it's only the experts who can validate the impact that we do. We need the experts to do the calculations of the carbon emission, the food waste, etc. But the travelers, they can acknowledge and share the sustainability actions that they see. There's many ways in doing this, building more integrity into travelers, sharing, and to build more transparency. Today we're going to use the Trip Doodler user rating as an example, because this is also the one that's been used for the event rating that we have created. So I just want to give you 1 minute introduction to how this is built. So when the travelers engage, and you will see that when you engage yourself with the rating, you are presented with a set of objective parameters of sustainability actions. All you have to do is mark if you see the action implemented or not, or maybe you don't know, which is also a really important answer. The parameters sit across environmental, social, cultural, and economical pillars of sustainable tourism. And we've carefully selected the parameters based on impact level, consumer interest, and the expected implementation in EU. And then, of course, the visibility. We can only leverage the consumers' voices when they can actually see the efforts. Right now, the Trip Doodler system works on accommodations, eating places, and shops. And then, as on events like this, so the event rating that we have created is built on the same structure, right? And again, also so all the parameters sits in 4 different categories. We will dive into the event rating a little bit later. So one question that I know a lot of you probably have right now, I had it when I started out this, can consumers actually identify these sustainability actions? And are they willing at all to engage? So we did a research for Wonderful Copenhagen earlier this year, and what we did see was that yes, visitors can actually identify sustainability actions when they are prompted in the right way. We engaged 200 travelers because Wonderful Copenhagen wanted to figure out how is sustainability perceived by the travelers. They have a lot of data on how sustainable they are. They didn't have any data on how the travelers are actually experiencing sustainability, so they engaged us to do that. We talked with 200 visitors, and we saw that they can, but also that it was quite difficult for them to identify certifications. And then we saw that one of the things that they really had a lot of acknowledgement of was the community impact and local food options, which was quite interesting. What was also interesting was that what we saw was that the conscious travelers is twice as likely to raise their voice than the average traveler is. And that makes them a very interesting tool for us in promoting sustainability in tourism. We also saw that 76% of the travelers, they think that a user rating is going to help them make more sustainable choices, because the user rating taps into their ability of sharing sustainability in the most trusted source, friends and families. Okay. So, one thing that we also looked into, because in tourism, we don't have yet really strong data on behavioral economics. So I had a look at in another industry, which is the retail business, and they are pretty far in their journey on communicating sustainability. Some would say a little bit too far, maybe. But what the data shows is, and I'm going to read it out loud so you don't have to read it, there's a 35% higher purchase rate on multiple brand pages when sustainability actions are communicated. There's a 20% higher conversion rate with a clickable sustainability proof point when on product display pages, and a 5% higher consumer sentiment after embedding sustainability into the customer experience. And last but not least, they see a 2 times faster growth for products marketed as sustainable from products marketed not marketed as sustainable. I think that these data is really solid data that we can look at in order to see what is the direction that we are going also when we're talking about tourism, because these are for retail, right? This was a little bit of inspiration to get us started on the workshop. So the idea was actually to do just a short break where we can, maybe if you want to have a glass of water or whatever, but where we could also talk a little bit about the inspiration here presented. And then we're going to dive into the workshop in a very short time. Yeah? Cool. One second.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, of course. Yeah, cool.
Unfortunately, because
Yeah.
I really wanted to. But maybe you will be here around.
I will be
I will
around.
really,
Yes, yes, absolutely. Perfect. I think, I don't know if, do we need to wait a minute or, because otherwise we'll just jump right into it, right? So the outline for the workshop, which is the part I've been looking the most forward to, is to get some input on this as well. First, I will do a very short introduction to the event rating, because we're going to use that as an example. Then you're going to give it a spin. So you're going to work with the rating. We're going to have some table discussions about that because that will be a pretty new experience, I'm sure. After that, I'll just give a short introduction to a communication tool. That's a framework that we will be working on, because one thing is identifying, another thing is, okay, how do we actually communicate? Am I moving my hand too much, right? Then, because we are here to learn, to talk about how we can communicate. And then will be working together at the tables. And we will have a long time to really dive into this topic and work towards it. And then we will talk about some of the work that you've done at the table in plenum as well, and try and see if we can be inspired by each other. So this is the workshop that you can expect. So just very briefly, Green Destination has teamed up with us to get your feedback and acknowledgement of the sustainability actions at the conference. I'm pretty sure you've seen this QR code several places. How sustainable is this event? I think that's actually maybe not the purpose, but we want to know, how do you perceive sustainability? So we use the rating as an example of how to translate sustainability to consumers. So the first thing that I'm asking you to do is when I present the QR code for you, is to scan that code and follow the instructions. There's 11 parameters, and you only have to answer yes, no, I don't know. If you are thinking, oh, I don't know actually, and I would like to figure it out, you can always go back to this rating that you've done and you can scan the code again and redo your answers. So your final answers is not before doesn't have to be today. It's just an example, right? So when you're done, we can have a talk about how it was to go through a rating like this as a delegate in the event. So this is the QR code. It's also the same as, so some of you, if you have scanned it already, you will find yourself in the same page. And you can do this part individually. You can also talk about it if you want. But the idea is answering the questions individually and then talk about it together. I hope that it works. It did work this morning. Does it? Yeah, it works. Cool. And really, the I don't know answer is equally important as the yes and the no. There's no right answer here. It's your perception. So don't feel bad if there's anything you haven't seen or you don't know or whatever. Yes, please. Yeah. It really. Is it there now?
50% diversity in gender, like in key speakers or?
Yes. No, in all speakers.
In all speakers.
In all speakers. Yes, all speakers. Can I help?
Yeah, I can start.
You just start.
I just need which one to scan it.
You take it. You just put it up. Okay, put it here. Hold your phone against the yeah.
Yeah.
And then we do like this. Scan.
Okay.
Ah.
Okay. I'm going to
Okay. You don't. Yeah. So there's going to be. Oh, here it goes. Yeah. Here you go, and then turn it around again. Just turn it around. You're not connected to the Wi-Fi. Yeah. You need to be online for this to work. Yeah, so that's okay. You should go on the. There's a free one called Port of Tallinn. That one is free. Yeah. And then you can just, if you. I think you need to. Or you need to sign in for the Wi-Fi. But again, it's the link. Don't worry. Port of Tallinn, and then you sign in. And they ask you to sign in, so you have to click there. You just go like this, and you say accept. Yeah. And then you should be. You're now connected, so now you can scan the code. You're welcome. No worry. Yeah. No, not breaking news. This one. Let me just. No, you clicked on some news that you got on your.
Let's do it, please.
Yeah. So turn it around, like this, and then you start. Then you start here and answer. You have to accept cookies, but yeah.
Still use it in
So it's very
backpack. Of course, yes.
So everything is relative.
That's the way of thinking.
Does it work?
It does work.
It does work.
But I don't understand
You don't understand the question.
the question is.
Is the food 100% vegetarian? Meaning that there's no meat at all, fish, meat, anything. Is the food 100% vegetarian? Pardon? No, he was asking what does that mean, which is, that's actually a really good feedback for me, because sometimes a vegetarian is, again, is about this talking in this language that not everyone understands, right?
Yeah, I think we should have answered it after, or it is right to answer this.
You can go back. You can go back. Yeah, the link is open. So if you, this is just an example. So when you scan it again, you will have more knowledge. So you can amend it. So when you go to the toilets and you view them, you can see. Okay. So and you can change your rating. Yeah. So it's not going to reflect bad on green destinations that you don't know. Cool. Okay. Did you complete it? Not yet. Okay, you just started. And welcome, gentlemen. Are you joining us? Yeah, so you're doing it? Yeah, you just scanned it. Amazing.
I don't have to finish that.
You just have, yes, of course. It says, yeah, is the locally.
I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't answer based on the question. You answer based on what you see in the venue.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you have to think about what you've seen in the venue. Yeah.
You just rate your experience.
Yeah.
In the end, it says go to TripTotal.
Not necessarily, no. No. It's you can if you want to do the same.
I meant if it was the finish line.
The finish is yes. If you got the QR code for the free training, it's actually quite a cool tool. This My Sustain Online, so that's a coupon for you to do a free to do some free training there. They have micro courses of somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes on sustainability on any topic that you like. So it's just a token for you for doing, yeah. Pardon?
I can email myself.
Yeah. It's your own email. Yeah. But I mean, the reason why you have to do the email thing is because we need to, for integrity purposes.
To talk about that later.
Yeah, but also for integrity purposes, you need to submit an email so we can see you a person. Because so when you do these kind of things online, there's always a chance of someone being a bot, finding it, and ruin everything. So that's why you have to do the email and the capture, right? Cool. Okay. Should we continue, or just a few thoughts on the rating? Let me just see. Did I leave my paper? Anyone wants to share what they think about it? And I have very thick skin. So it's not.
I'm just rating our hotel.
Oh, but this is the event rating.
Yeah, I've done that one.
Okay.
So if I'm rating the hotel,
Yeah.
where does that information go?
That information goes right now on TripDoodler, where travelers can find it. But what we're working on is an IP integrations for platforms, so it could go on any platform where travelers choose their sustainability, so it's choose their hotel or their
So
whatever.
It could go on their website, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. It could go on any platform when we have the open API ready. Yeah, yeah. Cool, but maybe we just, I think it's really great that you're doing that. You don't have to right now, because now I want to dive into the communication part, right? Because one thing is that we can display these things for the travelers, right? But we also have to communicate it in order for them to find it. So how do we communicate sustainability? Obviously, it depends on what sustainability actions we have implemented. But it also depends on where we are in the implementation of the different actions and the level of details and documentations that we have available. Because at least in the EU, and this will spread widely, I'm pretty sure, all green claims need to be made with a backup of science-based evidence. It sounds super tricky, but we're going to dive into now, okay, how do we do that? Because science-based evidence needs translation. No one really understands that, right? So we're going to dive into to how can we do that? I'm presenting you here a 3-layer model that we can map all our actions to. So the first level is what we do. This is the early start, where we have implemented some kind of sustainability action. We have implemented recycling bins or water efficient toilets or whatever, but we haven't set a goal for it yet. So we don't have any solid documentation for anything. We just can communicate what we've done. Communicating at this level is really difficult without greenwashing. But when we are very precise about what it is that we've done for the factual and stay away from green claims, then we can talk about it. Then for the second level is when we have goals. So some of the actions that we have implemented, we might have done that based on a specific set of goals. But it's still early days, so we don't really have the real impact to measure it yet. But we have some goals on why have we implemented whatever it is. So being transparent and putting ourselves out there and asking everyone in the world to hold us accountable for if we are successful at a certain date in time, is actually possible for us. I don't know. I'll come to an example in a second. And then last but not least, we might be certified, we might have a super strong energy report or whatever that is documenting the sustainability action, so then we can build the translation on top of that data. So let's go through an example. So imagine that we are an accommodation that has invested in solar panels and installed them on the roof. It's an action. And since we don't have any data, that is all the facts that we have. But maybe we invested with the expectations that it will provide us 15% of our total energy consumption by the end of the year. We can then put ourselves out there and ask everyone to hold us accountable for that report, showing that by the end of the year, 15% of our energy consumption came from these solar panels. I don't know why it keeps going black, but my apologies. But maybe we have had the solar panels for quite some time, and we actually have a clear calculation of the energy that it is providing us, based, of course, on third-party reporting of our production and energy consumption. Then we can start communicating data and documentation, not before. But we can communicate at all 3 levels. It's all about mastering how we create the statements at each level. This is extremely important. So, how do we build in the translation for each layer? Well, That's what you're going to give me the answer to now, because this is the time for you to work in the workshop. You have all. These are the parameters that you were presented with in the rating. I think I just put them up here, so just in case someone didn't get the rating or can't remember. So what I'm asking you to do is, please, at the table, choose one of the parameters, and maybe if you want to move over here to the ladies, then we have the 4 of you together. Choose one of these parameters, only one at the table, and that one is the one that you're going to work from for the rest of the workshop. So you have to agree now. I'll give you a minute or two on one of these parameters, one of these actions at the table, so you can work from that. So it's decision time. Pardon?
What are we working towards when we choose one?
You're working towards how to communicate it.
Okay.
Yes, sorry if that wasn't clear. So you have to choose one of the parameters, whatever you want, and you're going to work towards, as an example, on how to communicate it.
Out of these, if there's something that we all said no to, that would be good. If we all said no to one, that might be a good.
So anyway, food.
Sounds like lunchtime.
Like how about, or if there's something we said I don't know to. For example, let's say toilets and water.
Exactly.
Did you say yes or I don't know?
I'm not sure exactly. It seems to me that I have seen that one, but sort of like whatever I'm saying. Are we talking about hotel, general venue, or this venue?
It doesn't really matter. You just need to choose one of the actions, because the communication way of working with the communication is the same.
We can go maybe one by one, all of them.
No, I'm sorry. You have to do one, because otherwise you're going to be a little bit time constrained, because it's not an easy process. The toilets might be a little bit boring.
Yeah.
What about this certificate? Like, I'm totally new in this one.
I'll just. Have you decided on one? Yes. Which one did you choose?
Locally sourced food.
Locally sourced food. No toilets. No. A little bit boring.
Talking about it, but
Yeah.
Hard decision.
But I have to say, I actually have to go and double check, because they have an automatic flush.
Yeah.
Which for me, like, but how can you? I mean,
Yeah.
but it might be that, so it might be that the water efficiency, because I know that they have it, sits not with me as a consumer, but sits in the back. But then I can't see it. So how do we actually communicate that it is water efficient? And don't worry, I know exactly how much water I need to finish.
You want the toilet now.
No. But keep the food. It's fine. So I'm just going to give you one of these, and then I'm going to give you these ones as well. But you can these ones. You 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just to keep them like this for a little while. Did you make a choice? Yes. Yeah.
The locally sourced food.
So we have a competition here.
Oh, we do. We will change. They was the same.
No. 3, 6, 8,
Sounds like
2,
lunchtime. We do.
1, 2,
Everybody's
3.
thinking about food.
So just keep them like this for a second.
and also restaurants.
Did you choose?
We're just talking about ideas potentially. I think that, yeah.
Did you
Yes.
choose?
Yes.
Toilets?
No.
No. Okay, which one did you choose?
I
1
think
second.
heritage culture.
Amazing. Cool. 1 second. I'll introduce these in 1 second. Okay, so everyone made a choice, and
I have a pen that you can use. She can take it.
cool. Okay, everyone made a choice. So this is where you work together at the tables, and there's just one question: how would you communicate this parameter that you chose? And I know we have locally sourced food and we have local heritage over here. So how would you communicate that? Thinking about these 3 levels, you have to make a statement at each level. One second. I have passed out these ones, so you can take them now. There's one that's blank, and then there's one for inspiration for each of you. So this one is the blank. The blank one is for the table. The other ones is for inspiration. As you will see, working with sustainability communication takes a little bit of effort creating these very clear translations, right? Just give me 1 second. Everyone, before you dive in, just give me 1 second before you dive in. The inspiration is divided into the 3 different layers. And then there's also an example. And then there's what you need to consider in order to actually create this kind of communication. Any questions at this point? Otherwise, I'll just leave it for you to discuss, and you have 20 minutes to work with this.
The location of the
I believe it's in this.
You have a question? Can you turn off this? Thank you.
If we choose second local food, we must.
Then you talk about, okay, let's imagine.
This event.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but let's just do this event, right? So you say, okay, we have implemented local food at this event. So what level are we at? So let's just say we have done that, but we actually don't have any data. I mean, we did it because we know we have this perception. It's cool. It's a great destination. The food is amazing. Whatever. But we don't have any documentation for it, and we don't really have any goals with it either. We just did it. How would you communicate that in a trustworthy way? That's what the first section here is about, right? So how would you communicate that? Then you just imagine, okay, we have implemented local food because we want to promote the region or whatever. We have set a goal. So we have a goal for doing that. Whatever goal it is that we've done, how do we then communicate it? So that is actually one. I mean, so you could say, okay, as green destinations, we want to have local food at the event. What is the goal with that? Well, that the goal is that we translate local culture to everyone. How do we measure that? after the event, and then what is the documentation for that? What is the expectation for it, right? So do you see what I mean? So first one, you don't have any documentation. You just did it because it's cool. The second one, okay, we did it because we actually believe that we want to translate,
Want to make something.
yeah, and so we want 100% of all the delegates to acknowledge that to taste local food. That's the goal, and we're going to measure it by the end of the event, and then we're going to show it to the world if we were successful. And the third one is all about that you have documentation actually for. You have documentation through your list of suppliers. Pardon?
Indicators and the results.
Yeah, you have indicators and results. So you can document with your suppliers so you can actually do a green claim. You can claim that all the food in this event is sourced locally, so that's the process. What you need to find out now, what is the statements that we can create that follows that level of documentation and KPIs.
Okay.
Make sense? Yeah?
Taking into account, provide a suggested text on what the company is doing with regard to the action. Who has started the process of installation? Okay, what we are.
Ordering from local farmers or something, maybe.
But actually, do we just want to say that we order from local farmers, or we already want to communicate out the number that 30% of our food is coming from?
10 farmers.
I think the answer to that question also lies very much in what can you document? What sort of data do you have? And you're filling in the first level at the moment where you have no data.
So maybe that should be here, our aim.
If you already have the documentation and you know exactly how many percentages of the food is sourced locally, why not document that? Then you're in level 3, right?
But we know who we buy from, so we know that they are local.
If you have the billing on who you bought from, and you have it third party validated by someone who's done an audit of your event or something,
That's
yes.
the most trickiest part, that we can do many things and we can.
But let's say that you just ordered local food because you think it's cool, right? I mean, you want everyone to to taste your local food. But you don't really have a goal with it. You don't have any measurements. How would you communicate that?
Okay, so now we have to play with the scenario that we don't have the numbers.
I think the idea here is to try and play with the scenario with saying, okay, we want to communicate that we have local food. Let's just play with the scenario that we don't have any data. What can we actually say without greenwashing? Okay, let's say that we don't have data for the impact, but we have an ambition, we have a goal with what we're doing. How can we communicate without greenwashing? And then the third one is we have 15% of all, and whatever. Maybe you might even have other data, right, that backs up. That's the different scenarios.
Ilman underbart. But the good thing that all of the food is handled by the government.
Central Asia, this Kyrgyzstan was a big point.
So you're working individually, or
No, I'm just taking notes.
you're taking notes? You're a note taker. Cool. Yeah.
Point sales Silk Road caravans when it was very years ago. That's why the heritage is big heritage and the main object of tourism, not only tourism, also history, and we must keep
We can push it forward to the later occasion.
No, please. No.
Maybe also, for example, if you're in Saaremaa, is it it's an island to Estonia? Is it the island or is it Estonia?
We invent a new origin mark. EO.
Yes, yeah.
Estonian origin.
Estonian origin.
Or EGO. Estonian geographical origin.
Too much.
So we have the first sentence.
Да.
You have
Znači
been
ovdje
written.
stavi 60%.
Tell me.
I ovdje trebamo sad napisati, we must write suggested text.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we are going to do.
Okay, sorry.
We're waiting.
Just an inspiration that sometimes when we talk about sourcing local food, if we don't have a lot of data, we know maybe in the name of one of the suppliers. So maybe we just say that all the vegetables is sourced from this farmer. And that's it. If we don't have any documentation for anything, what have we actually done? We've bought.
That we don't know the percentage.
You don't know anything yet, right? You don't. I mean, at the first scenario, you don't know.
Okay, so then we have work.
So I'm just So it is this, but
Put the food
We have
for
work
fun.
from three.
We just put the food on conference
But
for
it's-
fun because it's cool and we know that we should do that. Let's start like.
yeah, but if you do, but it's just so this is the really tricky part, right? Because
That we have worked with, what we started with was that we have worked with 3 local food providers. That
so these 3 local food providers has provided whatever it is that they have provided. They haven't provided the food in general. If not, you don't necessarily have that. But we bought this kind of food from this supplier. It's when we are at this level and we don't have any documentation, what did we do? We went out to this farmer and we bought all the vegetables that he had and then we cooked, So what did we do? That's what we... No, just... So have you worked through the first scenario on how to communicate when you don't have any evidence of what you've done?
Sorry?
It's just, there's 3 scenarios, right? There's the one, okay, how do we communicate if we don't have any data for anything? How do we communicate that we are supporting local heritage and communities? That's the one you chose, right? We don't have any data, so what did you actually do? That's the only thing you can communicate at this level. What did we do? And then you say, okay, we had this initiative because we want to... what is the goal? What would be the goal? We want to translate. We want to make sure that all the delegates have a clear understanding of what is the local heritage in the destination. I'm just making it up. So that is your goal. How are you going to measure that?
Yeah, we've
And-
already, we did that.
So okay, so yeah, and how can you communicate that when you have that level of information? And then the third one is that you actually have documentation for what you have done. So you might have a documentation already on how this event or how the hotel or how whatever it is supporting the local indigenous community or in heritage or make sense? Or so here you talk about what did you do? So we invited in someone to do a lecture, or we gave everyone a free part. Or what did you do here? You can't talk about the impact at all because you don't have any data for the impact. Yeah? So here you can talk about, we invited someone in to speak about it because we have the ambition that everyone understands local heritage when they leave. That's a really cool ambition to have. How are you going to measure it and when are you going to measure it? Yeah? It's the same with the solar panels. So we have an expectation that these solar panels is going to provide us 15% energy. We're going to measure it in the end of the year, and please hold me accountable that we get to that point. And here you actually have documentation for your impact. You might have a reporting from a third party that is documenting the impact this event has on the local heritage, or maybe you have maybe a part of the local heritage is that you have biodiversity projects or something like that, and you have a documentation for that. These are the 3 levels, and there's different statements for the consumers at each of these levels depending on your documentation for you not to greenwash on the way.
I get it.
Yeah, pardon?
I think I get it.
Yeah.
So we have under the people category. There's an event.
No, so now we're talking about how big percentage is that actually? Does it have to like
Sorry.
develop? Do we have to develop from this one?
I mean, you can. Maybe it's easier. I don't have an opinion about that. I think if you already now have this, you bought all the vegetables for the conference from these 3 local farmers. That's what you did, right? Okay, why did you do that? What is your goal doing that? And when are you going to measure if you were successful?
Want to promote local food and want to help our local providers to earn some.
Super nice goal. Needs to be measurable, right?
Yes.
Needs to be measurable. How are you going to measure the impact of that action?
We will count the number of people and their awareness, because we will have some at the end of conference. Did you aware that was local food? And then they said yes. Now we know.
So if they said yes, you're here, because then you already did it, right? Here, you're just telling me the reason why you did it, and when are you going to let me know if you were successful in doing it? So you put the solar panels on the roof. You want to have 15% of your energy coming from these solar panels. I'm going to let you know by the end of the year if I was successful. So you see, you have to put it into a context. So you say, well, we want to support. Love it. How are you going to measure your support? How are you going to measure your support? When are you going to measure it so you can tell me if you were successful? Then it's okay for me to know that you're on the journey. Yeah?
So here is basically that we.
There's many ways to do that, right? Yeah.
Participants of the conference with the local farmers.
It could also be that these farmers they have documentation that they are carbon neutral. I'm just making it up, right? I don't know. But might be that the farmers can provide some of the documentation for the measurements.
And then you can measure that economic benefit, especially
I think you also have to measure basically with the delegates.
Sorry.
Yes.
Isn't it enough that the catering company buys from local farms? Why should there be also documentation from local farms that it comes from?
If you really, I mean, it depends on what is the purpose of buying from local farms. Is the purpose from an economical perspective that you want to support the local community, or is it because you don't want to transport, so you want to lower your carbon emission, or is why have you chosen to buy the food locally? There's different reasons, right? But if you have a catering company doing everything for you, then what you did was choosing a catering company that's buying from these farmers. So what you are going to do we don't have the documentation yet, but we're going to measure the impact via the data from the catering company, right? And then at the end you have the documentation from the reporting from them, and maybe you have a third party. It depends on why did you do that?
But if I do it like to serve fresh food, how should I count it? How I measure it?
But I mean,
To serve fresh food. There's no doubt about it.
And also
How
but it can.
We are talking about sustainable tourism, which means agro-tourism and food and all those stuff. We want to promote locally food produced by local producers, which is made in organic way. That would be something that
But this is where, so we are mixing a few things. So the reason local food is important for sustainable tourism because it's the translator of culture. Because local food, from an environmental perspective, you can argue if it's better or not. Because local food, what if it has pesticides or whatever, But then you say, what is the transportation? So you can, but it depends on what is your goal with implementing local food. If your goal is to translate culture and give people an experience, then you're measuring it in one way. If your goal is to lower the carbon emission, because you don't want to transport food around the world, then you have a different goal. So you can say, well, then
We need to have only one goal.
you need to have a reason why you did as you did.
Yeah, but how do you quantify? Let's say, for me, this CO2 argument is easy because you can really calculate it. But how do you quantify in goals this fact? Which
The
seems
cultural
to be
translation.
like that we want to promote the local,
Yeah.
we want to
Yeah.
support the local
Yeah.
farms, and we
Yeah.
want to offer
Yeah.
nice local food
Yeah.
for the participants.
Yeah.
How do you make that?
I mean,
measurable?
it will. If you want to put two lines under it, it has to somehow have materialization in it. But it could be that the catering company can document how many local businesses they are. There's an economic parameter to it, but there's so if it's about supporting the local businesses, they can document that it's local businesses. You, as a consumer, I can't see if it's a local business because it might look local, but someone else might own it, right? But they can actually provide the documentation. You can provide the documentation saying the reason why we want to do local food is because we support local businesses. So the goal is that 80% of the food or whatever is coming from businesses that is proven local. And then the documentation level is, okay, I need to see your company registration that you are a local business. So I can document that 80% of the food is coming from businesses owned locally.
Yeah, so here what would fill kind of this box is to say that we want 50% of the food
to be locally sourced by a business entity that is Estonian, in order to support economic. Yeah, exactly.
And also showcase.
Yes, and then you say, okay, and then I'm going to document that on this day. So by this day, I'm going to document it, right? You have to. So when you say this is my goal, you can say, yeah, I have a goal, and then in 5 years, okay, you have to set a context for the goal as well. So you set the goals.
Report for the conference.
Exactly, 50% is sourced, and then I want to document it after the conference. Then the conference is done. And then you have to collect the document. Either you collect the documentation, or a third party that is doing the whole is collecting it. Like Klimascore is doing a climate score for this whole conference, and I know he's looking into food as well, only from a CO2 perspective, right? But he's looking into the food elements as well to calculate a climate score. So maybe it sits as a part of that, or maybe you do it. If it's local businesses, a climate score is not interesting, then it's another documentation. And then when you have that documentation, you can communicate it. Does it make sense? No. But I think it depends on why do you want to implement local food?
I think we already agreed that we have to, we need to promote and economic.
Okay, but if that's the roadmap, right? If it's the local economic striving businesses, then that is the road you have ahead of you.
Clear evidence that according to lists there was 100 people, and that was served, I don't know, 300 of meals.
Because that should be doable in a year, right? To get 30% from actual local producers.
So in 1 year, we will know. Can you repeat?
In 1 year, we will buy like 30% will be from local, preferably small-scale producers, and in 5 years.
Okay.
This venue. That would have been like, I think, a bit better for understanding.
What?
Food served at the 3-day conference.
I just need the sound. Hmm? I'm just going to give you another 2 minutes, but then it's time to wrap up. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you didn't finalize it.
That's the most tricky one.
You get top marks.
When we did the GSTC training, like to become, I don't know what it just like for individual bringing up your GSTC knowledge and understanding it, and then you have to take.
I think they call it a professional certification.
Yeah. There was always you had to present about like your breakout groups every time, and there had to be a speaker and a note taker. And nearly every single time I was like.
Cool. Okay, everyone, we need to.
Just a minute.
1 minute, okay. Half a minute. I think that was a breakthrough on that table. I see you writing and writing. That's perfect. So it's time to turn towards the room again. Everyone. It's time to it's time to stop the discussions at the table. I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but it's time to just, because otherwise we're not going to get through some of the examples of how to do this. Please stop working. Thank you. From walking around to the tables, this is not an easy exercise. And that is why we have so much wrong information in the space, right? But this is a really, really important exercise for whatever it is you want to communicate. And I hope that it also translated that you can actually communicate sustainability if you just talk about what you did. So, what you wanted to promote food. Local food, the food is locally sourced, right? How would you communicate that if you have absolutely no data, but as you said, we just did it because it's cool? Yeah. What is the sentence that you... Oh no, I don't know. Who said that? But you have actually quite an interesting way of presenting that in the first layer where you really just have to talk about what you did. So who wants to say what you wrote? What is your communication on the first layer?
Okay. What we do for the cool things, all vegetables for the conference are purchased from 3 local farmers. So that's what we did. And we thought it was cool. So why we did it and what are the results and documents and all the indicators. So.
But I think this, I know that you spend quite a lot of time on figuring out exactly how do we communicate this. And the whole essence here is that the only thing you can communicate is what did we do? What did we actually do? Okay, we bought the food from local farmers. So you can't claim that the food is sourced locally, you can't claim anything, but you can tell everyone what you did. Yeah? So I think that was a really good way. I mean, you found a good way around, okay, what did we actually do? I haven't engaged so much here, but did you find also one statement on what did we do when we talk about promoting local heritage and culture?
We kind of broke it down into different categories. So we focused on this event. And so, for example, you have people being employed at the event, and people are wearing clothes. And
we think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. So they're wearing a local national outfit if there is a specific one for that region. Yeah.
Yes, or they're making the event staff, the clothes that they're wearing are made locally, or they are
national dress.
Like a national.
And in that sentence, there's two layers actually. One is that the people at the event is wearing the national dress. That it's locally sourced is a claim. So that unless you have actually a documentation for that, it's too early for that statement. But the statement that everyone at the event is wearing the national dress because we would like to translate or whatever, what is the reason, but that everyone is, that's what you did. You hired people in to do that. Everything else comes later when you have documentation. Do you have an example of what did you do? What you chose also the food locally sourced. What is your first statement? We serve local food. So I would like to ask how much, from where, why. So when you say we serve local food, when can you do that with a very solid data behind it? Is when you have documentation for the fact that it's actually locally sourced. So the solution that they came up with we bought the food from this guy. That's what they did. So we serve locally sourced food. That's correct, but if you don't have any documentation for it, which you don't have at that level, you will find a lot of questions, right? And what does that mean? And tourists, it's not only because of greenwashing, but also tourists want to know why, how much, what, everything. So this being very concrete. Okay, what did you do? I think does it make sense that there's a very big difference between I can document everything to what did I do? And we tend to forget that we can't talk about what we did because, as you also experienced, it's super difficult to be very factual about what did I do. But tourists really want to know that as well. It's okay for them if we are on a journey and we can't document everything. But just the fact that the vegetables are coming from these farmers, and maybe you have a QR code so you can scan and you can see the farmer or whatever, but it's just, that is a part of it, of the whole evolvement of sustainability communication. You all look very puzzled. Does it make sense at all? It makes. Yes.
In terms of food, I mean, there was on one wall in the venue like jam, especially. I don't know exactly what's the name of the product, but it seems that everybody liked it. It's like an empty shell. I took the last one. That is good. Like maybe somewhere there, that is a sign it's locally produced. I wasn't looking like.
No, but maybe they did. Maybe they just serve it, and they don't have. I mean, they don't need to communicate it for you. But if you want to communicate that this is a local jam, a good way of doing that is we bought this local jam from the farmer just around the corner, and here's a QR code for you to see that. You can meet him here. Or whatever, right? So it's very much about what did we do, and then they don't claim anything. They don't claim that it's sustainable. They don't claim it's green. They don't claim anything. They just tell you. But that is the kind of information we want to have. As tourists, we are looking for information to support our personal interest. Yes.
You started with mentioning that there is very much over-communication.
Yeah.
Isn't it over-communication that this jam comes from this farm this smoothie comes from this...
If you remember the slide of the over-communication, it's because it's not translated. So the way that we communicate sustainability today is through certifications. We have 150 of them. The tourists don't know what's behind the certification. But as a part of a green destination certification or a part of a green destination event certification, there's actions. Actions that speaks to the person that is actually at the event. So the reason why we have an overflow is because we all talk in headlines. We talk like people, everyone understands what it is that we are doing. You could see how difficult it was for you to actually break down that information into something that is useful for you, something that you can relate to and feel empowered by. So that's the reason why there is so much over-communication is because it's headlines, all of it. For the consumers, it's one big black box. We need to break it down and make it personal. So you really like the jam. So there's an opportunity because you're motivated to eat more jam, right? So there's an opportunity to actually give you a little bit of local culture, to give you a little bit of support for the local farmer. But if you just said, okay, all the food is sustainable, yeah, okay, whatever. So I'm trying to bring in the layers, right? And I will show a few examples of how some have done this. Not in events, but in general communication. So we'll just quickly move on. Yeah, I did a little bit of tips and tricks for communicating sustainability. One, I think that we also experience today is be very factual. It's okay to take pictures, but there's going to be 6 of them. So if you want to have all of them together, then you can wait for the 6th one. So be factual in the sense that transparency builds trust. So that's what I meant about over-communication, is that if you just speak in a headline saying this is sustainable, no one can relate to it. So documentation, I have to get closer because I have to read this as well. The documentation, document your statements with data and research. Provide context. We also had that in the exercise. Without context, the numbers don't really tell a story about your development. But with numbers, you can tell we are here today, we plan to go here, or we did this and now we can prove this. So the context kind of shows the journey and the improvement, and it's extremely important in sustainability. I don't know why I go. Show the certifications if you have them. I have a few examples of how you can translate a certification in a little while, because you need to translate certifications. It's not enough to plaster everything with a certification. You need to take things out of that certification that speaks to tourists.
But we kind of run into that problem here, that how do we prove that it's local, that there's so many labels,
yeah.
That do people even know what they mean?
Yeah. I would say that they don't, which is one of the reasons why that when you get to the level where you have documentation, so we talked about it as well, saying, okay, we need to find documentation for this food being locally sourced. The only way we can do that is by asking the businesses we buy it from to give us data on the fact that they are local. When you have that data, then you don't need a certification. You can just say 50% of the food in this event or 100% in the food of this event is locally sourced. And by the way, here's a QR code where you can read the proof. Or here's, what if you want a deep dive. Only a very few of the tourists wants to deep dive, but they want to see the facts. And you can communicate the fact if you have the documentation. But they don't want to see the reports of ownership and stuff, right? Avoid general terms. We talked about this as well. So no green, no sustainable, no climate friendly. Talk about what you do instead, and we talked about this today in the action. And then internal first, and I've added this because I think the best resource that we have in sustainability communication is actually the people that are meeting the customers. So making sure that the staff at the event or the staff in the hotel or wherever it is, that they understand the sustainability journey that you're on. And they understand all the details of the great actions that is implemented. Because if they understand it, they will brag about it to the whole world. And then communicate. I really hope that I've shown here today also that it is possible to communicate without greenwashing, and we need to do it. It's only when we talk about sustainability that we can actually make a change. Invite the tourists in to join your journey, and I know there's a few spelling mistakes, but my apologies. Yeah? Cool. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I have to say to everyone that you need to familiarize yourself with what's going on in EU at the moment in regards to renegotiating green claims and the Tourism Engagement Act. So this is obviously is only for you who work in the EU, but actually it's really solid guidelines to follow when you are not, so you're not greenwashing. But for us who lives in EU, it's actually, it's very prominent. And what we've talked about today follows the existing first draft of those rules, but they are under negotiation. Let's look at someone who did communicate. And now it's time for a Danish lesson. I know that, I think that you're all fluent in Danish, right? I would expect that. Obviously not. But I couldn't help myself. I had to bring this in because this is a perfect example of how to break down your communication. So this is the Danish Railway, and they did an advertising where they talk about the documented achievement that they have. They lowered their carbon footprint with 15,000 tons of CO2. That's a fact. They have that documented. But what they also did, and you can't see that in the text, but what they also did was that they told us what they're going to do next. Because the 15 tons looks like a lot, but in a percentage, well, they are on the way, right? Yeah.
But still, to me as a citizen, it means not really a lot. What is 15,000 tons for a citizen? My mind cannot imagine this.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And they could have translated into that is this amount of cup of coffees, or they could have put it in the average. But just the fact that it's a big number. And what we see is that a lot of businesses, they throw around these big numbers, but they don't put it into context. They actually put it into context here. They show the big number to get your attention, and then you have to read. But if you read it, you actually get the context of how much is that compared to their total emission, and what are they going to do next. Because you're absolutely right. What does that mean, 15,000 ton? But they put it into a context on what does it mean in their total in the text. And then they enable you to read more through the QR code. So if you're one of the nerdy types who's thinking, yeah, but what does that mean? You have a QR code that enables you to read more if you want. Yeah?
8%.
Exactly.
This says much more to me than 50,000.
Yeah, yeah. But that is why we talk about that you have to put it into a context, right? They could have said 8% as well. It's a different story, but they could have, right? So at the Espresso House in Copenhagen Airport a few weeks back, I saw this sign. And what caught my attention to this sign was that it's not only about taste, it's also about people. And I'm like, okay, interesting. And what I really like about it is that it shows that carbon emission goes way beyond, sustainability goes way beyond carbon footprint, right? But what is also really interesting is that it's actually based on a certification. I don't know how many of you noticed that, but at the bottom right corner, they show the certification. If they had just shown to me the certification, I would be like, yeah, whatever. But they have taken out a statement that this certification allows them to do. Yeah? Because it's all about how they work with more responsible sourcing of their coffee beans. But they catch me because for me, in my personal interest on sustainability, it's all about people. So they caught my attention through my interest, and then they provide me with more data. Yeah? And then they placed it where I'm waiting for my coffee in line, so instead of reading my phone, I can read this. Another one has nothing to do with tourism. I don't know if any of you, maybe some of the ladies knows this brand of shoes. It's called Rock'emore, and they make leather shoes. And they also talk to our conscience, right? They say nobody cares about the cow that you're actually wearing on your boots. But what they want to show is actually also that they explain their value chain. So they buy all their leather from a company called Spor, which is the one in the right corner as well. If they had just shown that mark, I would have been like, what is that? But here, they chose a statement that follows that certification, so it's not that supplier of leather. And then they actually, and I really love that, they also have a QR code in every shoe, so if you forgot, you can see where your leather is coming from. So these are examples of how to translate sustainability for travelers or for consumers in general. The last example is the Apple ESG reporting video. I don't know if anyone saw that. No. It's a 5-minute video where Apple, they have just released their new ESG reporting. And I'm pretty sure they also have released it somewhere online where you can go in and download it and read it. But there's nowhere in hell that the Apple customers is doing that. Or at least, not the majority of them. So they are translating their ESG report into a video. They use a catchy, way of humor. What they do is that they make ESG relatable. And I have to give them points for doing this video, for creating it, for bringing themselves out there. But I think also you can use it to, when you watch it, think about all the things that we did today, about putting big numbers into context, about telling the right story, and then reflect a little bit on what would you have done differently if it was you communicating your ESG reporting like this, or your actions. But it's really well made, and this is an example of getting out there and starting to communicate. But have a thought about what they're not saying. Yeah? We don't have the time to view it, unfortunately, but go in and find it. It's on YouTube and everywhere, and just watch it and think about all the things that we went through in this workshop. So we came to the end, and actually on time. We started out with exploring the relevance of why are we doing this, the importance of translating sustainability into something that's personal for consumers, that they can relate to, without losing the integrity of what we're doing. Then we dived into the rating, and we also dived into this model. There's a lot of models on doing this, but this is one of them, trying to break down the communication and figure out how can we actually communicate at each layer. We had some interesting talks about that, so thank you for engaging in that. And then we also had, in the end, just a few learnings from best practices. I hope that I met your expectations with the workshop. I would love to stay in touch with all of you. So this is my contact details. And I hope that we can make tourism more sustainable, one choice at a time, together. Thank you.